liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity.
All right, welcome back to GMA3. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has a way with words, and now he's channeling his talents into a new book.
The ABCs of Democracy spells out American values with vivid illustrations and clever wordplay from A to Z. And joining us now is Congressman Hakeem Jeffries.
Good to
Thank
see
you
you.
so
Good
much
to
for
have
being
you
with
on.
us.
Great to be with you.
Okay, so before we dive into the book of it all, we have to talk about some of the things that are going on in Washington right now. Matt Gaetz withdrawing his name for consideration for Attorney General. President-elect Trump now putting forward another pick. What do you make of it all?
Well, in terms of Matt Gaetz's withdrawal, I think it's an indication that there are still boundaries in America. And his nomination clearly was a bridge too far for Democrats and some Republicans in the United States Senate and, of course, across the country. Now, from the standpoint of the election, our view is that we will work as hard as we can with the incoming administration to find common ground to solve problems for the American people, particularly as it relates to lowering the high cost of living. But we will, of course, push back against far-right extremism whenever necessary. And that's a necessary balance that we're going to have to strike as we move forward.
And with that said, you know, Republicans now control the White House and both chambers of Congress. What's your game plan for your party moving forward? You got your work cut out for you.
Certainly entering into a challenging moment, but I think there's a time to campaign and there's a time to govern. And when we get back to Washington in January, it'll be a time to govern. And we are looking forward to trying to find that common ground. The American people spoke loudly and clearly, particularly around the issue of border security and on the issue of lowering costs, lowering housing costs, lowering the cost of groceries, lowering the cost of child care in particular. And that's something that we're hopeful will be viewed not as a Democratic issue or Republican issue, but as an American issue for all of us in Congress to tackle with the new administration.
Let's talk about your book here. This was sort of born out of this speech that you gave that had a lot of applause around it. Why did you decide to turn it into a book?
Well, you know, I thought this is an interesting time in America as we approach our 250th birthday, which will occur on July 4th of 2026. And what has undergirded that journey, it's been an incredible journey. We're the greatest democracy now in the history of the world, have been values and institutions and ideas that are uniquely American. And so having delivered the speech, I thought that it would be appropriate to capture it both through the lens of the alphabet, as was done in my remarks, but to illustrate it using the power of pictures and illustrations. And it was an honor to work with a young illustrator named Shania Carrington, who did a magnificent job. It was a great collaboration to try to hopefully capture. It's an illustrated book for people of all ages, but hopefully for younger Americans and people who are trying to process this moment, they can take a step back, look at the book, and realize that we are on a continuous journey toward a more perfect union.
So what's your message for those in Washington when it comes to this book, lawmakers?
Well, I think one of the things that emerges perhaps is from the letter W, which is working families over the well-connected. That the American people want to ensure that great American dream, which is that when you work hard, play by the rules, you should be able to provide a comfortable living for yourself, for your family, purchase a home, educate your children, have access to health care, go on vacation every now and then to enjoy time with loved ones, and of course, one day retire with grace and dignity. But for far too many Americans, that classic American dream has been out of reach for too long. And we've got to turn that around. And that's one of the lessons that I think will come out of this most recent election.
Speaking of this most recent election, Democrats took a lot of losses. How did Democrats get it so wrong with voters this time?
I think the lesson from the American people is that we have to work together to get things done. Not Republican things, not Democratic things. Get things done to make life better for everyday Americans.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, thank you so much for being here.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you both.
The ABCs of Democracy is available now, and you can scan that QR code right there at the bottom of your screen if you would like to buy a copy.